Hi, I'm Des Burkinshaw. Welcome to Without the Beatles. What do you think of the new home? We're thinking about making this our new home instead of all the cameras laying around all over the place like we normally do it. Today, I'm just introducing today's guest. We are huge fans here of Vulfpeck and all the stuff that's happening out of LA right now. I got in touch with Jacob Jeffries, who's been working with Jack Stratton, with Vulfmon on his own staff, and now he's a full-time member of Vulfpeck as well. If you get the new Clarity of Cow album and see the videos of that, you'll see Jacob is like leading things, vocals on things like Big Dipper, which is he co-wrote with Jack. And to my amazement, I mean, I was just guessing because I saw that he'd done a couple of Beatle covers. He might be a Beatle fan. It turned out he was a bit more than a casual Beatle fan, so we have indeed interviewed him. We had to do it over Zoom, which was not a happy experience. And I just want to apologise up front before the show proper starts. Zoom does the cutting. Now, you might think otherwise, that I absolutely love my face, because all the time Jacob's talking, for some reason, Zoom is triggering, and I'll be sitting there checking the screens, make sure everything's going, scratching my nose, all kinds of things. I didn't touch a single button. Never does this normally. It just plays whoever's talking. But on this occasion, God knows you've got a lot of shots of Des, and no, I didn't have any isolated views, so that's it. That's what you've got, and that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking it's time for us to come and do this properly as the audience has built. So enjoy Jacob Jeffries of Vulfpeck, Vulfmon, and Jacob Jeffries solo.
Hi, Jacob. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, honoured to have you. I know we've been very excited. Des has been angling to get you on for a long time, so we're really, really thrilled to have you on.
So grateful.
So I gather, Jacob, that you've had a listen to the podcast. Which one did you listen to?
I listened to the Gilliam one. I'm a big. I think I told you I'm a huge fan of his work and his movies, and his relationship with George was really. I knew they had one, but I didn't know how deep and just exactly how that formed and what it looked like. So to hear him talk about that was so cool and insightful. And now fans of you guys. So this is great.
I came across Vulfpeck during COVID. I saw the Madison Square Garden concert. Me, my daughter, and my wife, we just sat and put it on. We didn't know what it was. Just put it on because we were bored, right? And it was the most entertaining hour or so. And what that sent me down was quite a big path. And so once you go in, that's it. You've got 20 different things to listen to. Led me to Lewis Cole as well, and all that kind of stuff. And then you've joined in, started doing stuff with Jack, and now you're effectively with the new Vulfpeck album, a full-time member of Vulfpeck as well. I mean, this has just been the most joyous set of music to listen to in a miserable world where everyone's forgotten how to have joy making music. You know, I'm assuming that it must be quite good fun hanging out with you all, because I imagine you laugh as much as you play.
Yeah, we're all, I mean, friends first, and I was a fan first. So like you guys, I discovered Vulfpeck earlier on than COVID, than the pandemic, but not by much. I mean, I was just such a fan. I was looking forward to YouTube videos coming out by these guys, and I felt giddy when they popped out. And then Theo Katzman, who's one of my best friends in the whole world, and now I'm friends with everyone in the band, and now I'm a member. So it's been a very natural and organic development. There are still pinch me moments when you're performing in front of so many people. And yeah, I mean, writing with Jack comes so naturally, and hanging out with these guys comes so naturally too. So it's just such a, I don't know. It's like, these are friends I feel like I've had my whole life. And that's normally how these things work out.
Of course, that's a lesson from the Beatles, and form a band with your friends.
Yeah. I think I've learned a lot of things from the Beatles over the years, and I've always looked for that in professional collaboration, and also even if it's just like a session. I'm also a session musician too. Sometimes, you know, I'll get a call from someone to come into a studio, add what I can to a song, and even if that's a finite moment, I'm still kind of thinking about what would the Beatles do? How would John and Paul handle this? Maybe, you know, I don't know.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, to me, that's their ultimate legacy, the impact they've had on
As you can see, I'm a musician too. And, you know, the way that it influences people's thinking, right? So when you're doing stuff, I dare say computer engineers think about what Steve Jobs would have done.
So much for the Beatles, it's almost like coming up with a great tune is always too easy. It's, you know, they're always like, what can we do with it now to make it different to the last song we released? You know, and the fact that that still amazes us so many years on, what makes people like us be talking about it still today.
Totally. I think the Beatles, I love that we're just already there, man. It's like
Yeah,
the Beatles
yeah.
are they're always on the forefront or the back of my mind, but they're never not on my mind. So it's kind of, this is brilliant. Yeah, I think what makes them so special and so prevalent still is the accessibility mixed with, it's so like genre unspecific. Like everyone can find their favorite song on whatever album. And if you don't gravitate towards another song, wait till the next one, and then you're gonna like that one probably. You know, there's such diversity within it. That mixed with like, there is a level of expertise obviously here that the 10,000 hour rule that will apply also. So there's this early, you know, you could play you could play your blues off the White Album, or you can do Martha My Dear, like this like symphonic orchestration.
I interviewed Robin Hitchcock about this once, and he said, we've all been to Beatles College. That's what he described it as, because it's like an encyclopedia you can dip into. And I think it's really interesting listening to your music. It's really interesting to hear that you're that influenced, like as I am. But you wouldn't actually know it from listening to our music directly. You know, we're not doing a Beatles cover band or anything like that, or pastiching it. It's just the inspiration to be good, the inspiration to be experimental, the inspiration to have fun is that, right? Which is good enough. That's almost biblical influence. It's like background noise all the time, right? Without actually being copying.
Totally. I'll never forget my mom, who was she is the reason we basically grew up, speaking of the Bible, we grew up like worshiping the Beatles in lieu of a religion. Like that was our household religion. So it was funny how averse to Oasis she was when Oasis started hitting the scene, because she was like, she was like, nope, nope. They're ripping off the Beatles. We can't listen to this. They're going at it it's too Beatles. Now it's what I aim for as an adult. I'm actually trying to, like, when I do this stuff with Jack sometimes, you know, we do this stuff at our buddy Mike Viola's house, who you should totally sit down with at some point. He's just the best. And he's such a Paul guy, and he's really geared his studio to sound a lot like the old records. We do go at it sometimes intentionally. We try to make a Beatles sounding thing now. Ultimately, everything I do is informed by age 0, you know, all the formative years of just being inundated by Beatles music, you know.
It's the version of Walrus that you've got.
Yeah.
But the thing I love about that is quite a lot of people try and cover that, either that song or that sound, and they just, you know, cover it in reverb and effects and sort of try and get as psychedelic as they can. You do the opposite, you stripped it right back, and it sounds much more, you know, you've got the real soul of that song, and it's just with the organ and kind of, you know, not, you know, almost stripping back all the extraneous parts of the song, and it kind of, you know, it captures something which a lot of people have failed to do. And I was talking about Oasis, they did a cover version. I think it's terrible because it just thinks like you haven't got what the song's about, you know.
That's funny. Jim Carrey did a funny cover too. Did you hear that? You heard that one?
I did,
yeah. I was just talking about George Martin last night. Well, I was thinking about him because I revisited the White Album, as I mentioned, and I was like thinking about just what he began to start adding post White Album, all the orchestrations and all the ideas. What I love about listening to the fabric that is the audio capture of Beatles records, I find something new every time, and I've listened to these thousands of times, and I'm like, I'm hearing background parts that I forget existed, or I've committed to memory but didn't realize, oh, those are vocals, not guitar lines. Oh, whoa, the French horn is so prominent here for some reason. Like all of these choices, whether they were intentional or just kind of they became subconscious in the studio or something. George Martin added, it was what a pilot, I think, of that era, you know.
There's a bit of golden slumbers, and you know, with all the AI that's out now, you can break the tracks down, and people stick up just the strings from something or whatever. There's on the string arrangement for Golden Slumbers, there's the orchestra does all this stuff, and then the cellos do a big slide, which is hidden in the mix. It goes before Paul comes back in on his next bit. And you listen to it and go, that is beautiful, but God, why didn't you push the fader up on the... But it's not, it's subliminal. It just makes you feel like you're going back into something. And that's the beauty of arrangement, right? Not everything gets heard.
I didn't go to college for arranging. I didn't go to college, full stop. But when I think about certain moves like that, it is just feeling. And I think people sometimes they don't give enough attention to subliminal or subconscious feeling. So in fact, your thought is, why did you push the fader up? But I think pushing the fader up would have taken us out of the thing or something. It wouldn't have been a feeling. It would have been, hey, look at this. This is the thing I want you to focus on, listener. Instead of...
Also, we have to give them some credit. They did mix it. I mean, they did spend some time,
No, they just recorded it and bounced it right to... Yeah.
That's been fascinating. I mean, and we can talk about YouTube because I think it's a really interesting thing. The way that YouTube allows us to examine the past, but for a generation of musicians now, like yourself and Vulfpeck and everyone, YouTube is the gateway, right? It's so important. You don't have traditional record companies. You don't have traditional radio stations. Vulfpeck's audience is entirely a YouTube phenomenon, right? To begin with.
Again, I was such a fan of Jack and Theo and what they were cooking up. And I was YouTube, I would go to YouTube for Vulf. There wasn't much I was doing on YouTube. I'm a product of, or I'm part of a Instagram social media generation, I guess. And Jack is an anomaly. Vulfpeck's an anomaly. What the band's been able to do via YouTube is brilliant. And I think thanking early recordings like the Beatles, maybe not solely the Beatles, but just band in a room stuff, Jack made it so he tore all the walls down in terms of the audio capture and the video capture. I think what was huge was filming everything. Minimal overdubs. What you see is what you hear. What the consumers want out of YouTube, I think. What people want. They want to see the recording. We had a bootleg VHS copy of the Let It Be movie at my house growing up. And when they were like, hey, by the way, there's like 20 more hours of this. I'm like, what? This is all we've wanted our whole lives,
Well, Mark has got a theory about this as well because he just recently rewatched it, and it's like, what the original, and it's like, what a distortion of the event that film is.
It is a really miserable watch. They're just out to the throats, and there's no explanation. There's no sort of narrative to it. It's just they're in a bit of a mood. You hear them having a bit of an argument or crossword. Then they go, oh, here's a song, and then they go into one and stuff. And then, Billy Preston they don't introduce, when you're watching the Long Peter Jackson version, it's so sort of life-affirming when he turns up and they're all ready to quit the band. Then he turns up and they all say, we love you, Billy. And he gets them all together and they're all cheering and laughing. They're literally saying, what we need is a keyboardist here because Paul can't play it because he's on the bass and we need some keyboards. And he just turns up. I think he literally just popped in to say, oh, didn't he? I don't think it was arranged that he was actually going to. So, yeah.
George called him and say pop in, but not necessarily to join.
Maybe they'll cheer him. Yeah. But when you see the original film, he just appears. He's in the band in the back playing the organs. Nobody's mentioned, oh, by the way, we've got this new guy in the band. Or explain what he's doing there or how he's changed the whole dynamic.
Totally. What's funny about that is I enjoyed the mystery of Billy Preston when I was a child and growing up and discovering his solo stuff on my own. I liked that. But having seen now his influence through the Get Back footage, it grounds it in a reality for me that I'm like, oh, everybody knows a guy like that comes and brings new blood into an old situation and kind of like livens up the mood. And it just makes the Beatles feel realer. They were always, they're just a group of guys who were kind of sick of each other at that point.
I was going to say, that's exactly what I'm talking about, and, it just brings joy to people. And there's a direct connection, you're in people's homes and you're not, you don't have to sort of wait for a record company to release thing. People feel like they've got a personal relationship. And, I was the same as Des. I discovered that same concert and he was talking to me. It's like, oh, of course I know that. I was watching it. And it's just, I think when people really needed something like that, it's, it's like a Billy Preston moment. Everybody suddenly feels like, wow, these guys are like doing something good. And we feel, it makes us feel better about our life.
To that point, Vulf is entirely an indie. It's the definition of an indie band. It's walls down, and it's been Jack's intention from the start. I don't want to speak for him entirely, but I know that his mission was to avoid any tie-up in the major label world. And I know when you get as big as, I'm not comparing Vulf to the Beatles in any way in this way, but when you get as big as the Beatles, it's hard to avoid a major label or some sort of entity like that. But what I think what Jack's been aiming to do his whole life is to be as real as possible and connect to the audience directly. And which is why, I don't know if you saw, but this week Billboard released their vinyl sales rankings. And it's like Kesha, Sabrina Carpenter, Vulfpeck,
Didn't see that. Amazing.
in terms of vinyl sales globally. And it's like when you see the achievements of an indie band that way, it's such a testament to the fans, obviously, and how they've consumed the realness and authenticity of the band. You know, I think in a world of like AI and Photoshop and doctoring things and answering to, I don't know, fake, is this fake? Is this real? I think one thing that Vulf can bring to the table that I love and I love being a part of is this realness, is this what you see is what you get.
But it's, I've seen, so I'm going to do a bit of finger wagging because
That's okay.
you're not really doing London, you know, come on, let's sort this out. Since COVID, I've seen Joe playing with the Olive. I've seen Corey a couple of times. Went to Theo's 10 Good Songs tour.
I was at that Apollo show that Corey did. Were you at that one?
Yeah.
The Apollo Theater?
Amazing. Yeah.
It was a blast. Yeah.
You got to, you know, put a word in. It's about time we got a festival or something.
Yeah, no, I think it's we're all spread out, man. It's super group at this point of people and personalities from all over the country, and getting together. It's not a challenge, but it's also just, I think it's about agreeing on travel. I mean, touring and all these things and the schematics of a tour. I like being on the road. Some of us, you know, some cats don't love it as much as others, and I would love to get back to London personally. My last trip to London, you're going to love this, January of 2025, earlier this year, I was hired by a friend to come and play a combination of Billy Preston, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney in a Beatles cover band on a ship at a private party, Brighton. That's it. I was on a ship. I was in a Beatles cover band in January. It was so much fun, dude.
Sounds amazing.
It was.
There's another thing about Beatle fans who are musicians, right, Jacob? I bet you and I could sit down in a room together. We could instantly cover 50 songs, and I'll go, it's my turn on the piano, and you go, I'll do the guitar, you know, I'll do bass on this, and we could just swap instruments, and we know the parts, right?
Totally. That's the accessibility. No, it's like, yeah, name another band, right? It's, maybe the other cat who comes to mind for me, this is maybe a personal taste thing, is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Just because he was such a four chords and the truth guy, we could probably even do that with the Beatles solo careers too. We could probably go down all those rabbit holes. They're just so good at taking their influences and making it their own. And I think it was Sarah Bareilles said this once. There was a book called Steal Like an Artist. And I think that's what the Beatles taught me how to do. Just take chords, re-scramble it up, and then here we are, you know, new song. Good songs, man. Just like the best songs ever. That was their wheelhouse.
Talk about, Golden Slumbers just now. Paul McCartney was doing exactly the same thing, wasn't he? I'll take a song and I'll flip it around, play it backwards, and come up with a new melody and, riff.
Totally.
So Jacob, I've got a favourite little chord sequence from the Beatles, right? I wonder if you've got one, you'll probably be able to tell me. Mine is the intro to Fall on the Hill, where it's that D minor through the B flat and the B, and then into D6 from the D minor.
The D6 chord, I have been like a moth to a flame. I have been circling the D6, that D6 voicing. I'm trying to find I've been writing, I have a new record that's coming out in September that I did last year with Theo, but I've been writing a little bit for more stuff coming up. And that D6 voicing in the beginning of Fool on the Hill is in my mind. It's like in my heart. It's like trying to come out.
No, I love that. And all the demo, the Paul solo demo with Fool on the Hill as well, which is the same thing, where he hasn't got all the words yet. That's beautiful. It's almost as good in a way.
Dude, speaking of the demo, I it's funny. You know the Mandela effect, right? You've heard of this term and phrase. Yeah. I have this because of the anthology, where I'm listening to a track from an actual record and I'll sing like a BGV. And I'm like, hey, why isn't that there? You know? And it's like, oh, that must have been from one of the anthology demos. I think that's why, not to, I mean, I know I'm the interviewee here, but not to like make it all about me. But I will say, working with Jack, that is what makes collaborations really powerful for me or very valuable, is finding someone that will let me be kind of like this fountain that's just on. And Jack is really good at kind of being this filter or this catcher that like just takes all my ideas and he's like, he distills it to this one thing. And I'm like, yes, okay, cool. That's good. You know?
That said, I've just been listening to the 3 tracks over this week that you've got out from You've Got the Right Idea. That's the name.
Yeah, that's the name of the new record. Yeah.
Which sounds great, and obviously inspired by Theo's last album. Like, let's do it all live, do all that kind of thing. You're not exactly slouching if you've got Theo on drums and stuff, and the rest of the band as well. Must
Yeah.
have been an extremely good fun as a writer to see your stuff come alive with such a great bunch of musicians.
Totally. And as a musician yourself, you can relate to this idea. I wanted to bring it back to, garage band, basically, or like band in the living room growing up. I had all of these songs just voice memoed on my phone of me on the piano in my house, kind of noodling through the tune. And then I bring it to Theo's ranch up in Michigan, and it's kind of like an adult summer camp. We're all just sleeping in the same house, waking up, making coffee, and then trying to get 2 to 3 songs in a day. And it starts with teaching the song to my friends and, hey guys, is this cool? And there was one tune that came out called As You Go, which was more of in my head, it was a train beat kind of folk song, like chukataka, tukataka, almost Zydeco maybe or something. And Theo just started kind of just playing a funk beat over it. And I was like, okay, like that's not how I heard it, but let's try that. And it became more of a band record. It's how I wanted to do it my whole life because that's how the Beatles did it. It's now my favorite record for band in a room, was let's get the mic placement right. I mean, Nick Nagurka, who is Theo's right-hand man and makes everything. I mean, all of his mic choices. There were moments where we were waiting for like 30, 45 minutes. And I was like, what's going on right now? Why aren't we playing the tune? And Nick's like, hang on, I got to fix something. And this is way over my head. I don't know much about sonic audio design stuff. And thank God we gave Nick this time to fix a mic placement and change a mic head or pre or something. And I'm like, okay, like it's just the perfect team, man. A dream team of people working together to make songs come to life.
Yeah, it sounds. The thing that's been bugging me is what's that bloody weird chord on the word worry?
Oh, cool. I'm not singing. That's a really cool question. I'm not singing a note in the chord. You don't need to worry about me. So you want to naturally sing the flat 7 of the D flat chord, but you don't sing that chord, but you play basically a D flat 7, F minor 7 to D flat 7, but you're not singing. You don't need to worry up. You're not singing the B. You sing the D. You stay on D flat. You don't need to worry about me. You just kind of stay in the major scale.
It's a good place to put a trick like that on the word worry. Obviously,
I didn't even think
Well, that's
about that.
Yeah, well, is it? And that's a Beagle thing, right? Because
Mhm.
there's loads of those. They're masters of this stuff.
That thought that you just had, the double entendre almost of the meaning, is why I gravitated. This is gonna be a left turn, maybe. It's why I gravitated from the Beatles to good musical theater. When song becomes story, and then story kind of turns around and becomes song, it's this beautiful marriage that can have so many layers. And I think the Beatles were really good at that, and so is really good theater.
The Great American Songbook is my other great love as well. But I'm not a big fan of contemporary musicals as much. So
Mhm.
I find them too poppy, right? So as opposed to like collaborator or something,
Totally.
which is who I think if you're not going to give Paul McCartney the best writer of the 20th century, you've got to give it to Cole.
I love that, man. That's a great take. Cole and I mean Gershwin too. I mean Bernstein. I mean all of these guys were doing things the right way in the world of musical theater. I agree with you. I think contemporary musical theater is trying to appeal to a wider audience. There's a way to do it. I think there is some contemporary musical theater that I do really love, but it's all about layering, man. Can't just be one thing. There has to be multitudes.
So, Mark, you don't like musical theatre much, do you?
Well, I wouldn't say I don't like it. I just don't have a deep knowledge of it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's because, kind of what you're touching on there. I like things that you can interpret in different ways, So like I love Beatles songs, we were talking originally about how, occasionally you come across someone who says they don't like the Beatles, and I always say, like, which Beatles don't you like? And I can go, and I had a friend of mine, who Justin recently, who I was talking to, and he's like, it wasn't like anti the Beatles, like it's not really my sort of thing. I never really got into them, and I knew what sort of music he's into, and he's kind of into hip hop and stuff, but I knew he liked kind of garage bandy sort of thing. So I just did a playlist of like all the rough and ready Beatles stuff, which is a lot of the early stuff. When I played that to him, he was like, "Oh my god, I never really," but he kind of knew half the song. He was like, I never really kind of put it together. Like they were like the roughest, best hard playing band before all the fancy studio stuff. And I think people have an idea of what it can be, and that's why I love. He never bored listening to the Beatles, and there's a lot. I think the trouble is a lot of musical theatre. I think there seems to be one definitive way of performing it.
Mark, I've seen Wicked 3 times in the theatre. I really love Defying Gravity. I haven't seen the film version yet, and I only know one song after seeing it 3 times. I mean, literally, there's something I felt like that missed. And my daughter, who we were talking to earlier, she absolutely loved Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to like that. I was like, I'm up for this. And I was sitting there, and it was like, right, they've missed the central story. The central story is not a guy who starts out like a firebrand, becomes really boring. The central story is the 2 bloody sisters. And it should all have been about the 2 sisters. It should have been called Mrs. Hamilton or something like that. And it was really funny. Now, of course, technically it's amazing and everything, but I don't think anything has ever left me colder in the theatre than Hamilton did.
You know what? Sorry, I know we're sidetracking, but what I will say, what I love about okay, great. What I loved about Hamilton, music aside, I watched it, rewatched it with my 7-year-old niece recently, and she had me pausing it every 2 minutes, which was a lot. It was like, it tested my patience in a beautiful way. However, it had me appreciating this musical from a totally different perspective that I never really did before, because I was watching it through my musician lens, or through my musical theater lens. And what I loved about it this time was I was recognizing how much of a history lesson this thing is. And I know he didn't. You're totally right. They could have dove way deeper into the sisters. The way it's set up, though, it is such a crash course in the Hamilton story that, my niece is asking all these clarifying questions as we're going. Like, wait, what did she say? It's going so fast. It's rapping. It's blah, blah, blah. But it had me appreciating it from an educational standpoint, I guess, is all I'm saying.
Right, everyone knows if you say nowhere man goes Robert Soul,
Yeah.
The Beatles have taken up so much of our brain space that could have been used for something interesting like mathematical formulas or something.
Dude, it's so true. I'll be in writing sessions with people, and I can't tell you how many times I've been told, like, that's a little too Beatley. Like, can we, like, I'll be in like a pop session or a hip hop session, and I don't know how to not call upon that part of my brain, man. It's like, it's tough. Even the musical theater stuff, like the reason I'm deep on it too is I was part of a musical theater workshop for every summer growing up. We would write a musical from scratch with a group of kids in South Florida where I grew up. The program's called Lovewell, and Lovewell was such an important part of my life. But it's funny because I'd be the musical director. I was a student first, then I became a teacher, a staff member, and every so often there'd be a different musical director. So it would circulate between me and someone else. One summer, someone else. I was definitely writing like basically Beatles musicals. Like these were not like, they had some really genius musical theater composers that were like elaborate, just layers of basically Sondheim or Andrew Lloyd Webber, or like, just weird stuff. And then there was me who was just writing 4-chord, basically like, rock anthems and or folk tunes or whatever, just all Beatles inspired. And it was very funny to see like which one Jacob was the musical director for, and then which one these other real musical theater guys were a part of. It was such a difference. But yeah, my favorite musical is a dark one. It's a bit depressing. It's from 1998, so it's more contemporary than that, and it's called Parade. It's by a composer named Jason Robert Brown, who writes very minimalist, usually very minimalist plays. He wrote this play called a musical called The Last 5 Years, which is a 2-person cast. He writes these pared down things, but Parade is a bigger production. It's a true story about a crime that was committed in 1913 near Atlanta, Georgia, and it plays on, or the musical's about. It involves racial injustice, anti-Semitism. It's early century bullshit, man, in the American South, and it's a dark story, but it is so beautiful. I've seen it now 4 times. I went and saw it last weekend here in LA, sobbing by myself in the balcony. I think it's the best way to tell such a real, evocative story through music, which I think when people think musical theater, they're like, jolly, jolly, jolly. It's all good. La da la 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 da. Get me out of here, And then I'm sitting there like full like adult man by himself sobbing. It's like, wow. That's where I'm blown away.
I've actually banned my wife from coming to concerts with me. I think what happens is when I start crying, which I do all the time to music, she needs to check that she's married to a sensitive guy. So she'll look and check, he's probably crying at this moment. Yes, I am. And it's like someone sticking a pickaxe through a bubble, and I'm like, stop it.
I think I'm the only person who liked that Joker movie, the musical, the second one. I thought it was amazing.
I never got to see it, man. I never saw it.
I loved it. And the musical moments, like, basically, he escapes reality, and he's got, there's sort of debate, his defense is that he's mad, but he breaks into song, basically, to sort of escape reality. So his madness comes out in song. I thought it was so clever, but it was kind of, it was, it's not the sort of right subject for a Hollywood movie, it would have been a brilliant sort of sleeper, art house film.
So can I ask you something, Jacob?
Yeah, please.
It's something I can't work out, actually. Because you explain your musical theatre love, it makes more sense. You've played with your voice a lot. That could be a Beatles thing, because Paul's the master of 1,000 voices, but it could be musical theatre. So from this pitching up in Nice to You with Jack, or How Much Do You Love Me, or Red Cardinal. There's a lot of different voices going on there. What's going on there? Beatle brain or theatre brain?
Good question. Unequivocally, Paul, it's Beatles brain, because of the chronology of my ascertaining of inspiration. I think my mom, although she did like musical theater, and we were the family that tried to sync up Dark Side of the Moon with The Wizard of Oz, we were that family. I think my mom, she's no longer with us, but she was such a Beatles fan and ultimately a hippie, as they say. And it was more important to her that I understood the importance of the Beatles than it was anything else really on this planet. So I think when she started gleaning that I had a musical penchant or was musically drawn, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was 2 years old, she would say this to everyone. When I was 2 years old, I dragged a toy piano into the kitchen, like those little tiny toy pianos. She said I dragged it across the house into the kitchen while she was washing dishes. And I said, "Look, Mommy, I can make the piano sing Imagine." And then I plucked out the individual notes to Imagine, which is in C major, which is all the white keys, which is like, okay. But I was 2 and I was doing it by ear, and she had played it nonstop in the house. It was always on vinyl. It was always on the turntable. It was always in the house. And I think like when she noticed that I could match pitch and I could play and I loved it so much, it was off to the races. It was everything Beatles all the time. And then I discovered musical theater as a teenager with my theater friends in high school, where I'm like, which group do I fit into? The punk rock kids, or the sports guys, or the musical theater kids? It was like, oh, these are my people. These are silly, funny guys. But I was the Beatles guy in the musical theater crew. So it was definitely Beatles first all the way. And it's funny because as much as I want to be John, I'm Paul, and I'm cartoony. I'm versatile. You know.
If we haven't said it yet in this series, I think we need to say it now. The most underrated vocalist of all time, the one with the most diverse range of voices, is Paul McCartney. And he, I don't care who you are, whether you're Elton or Elvis or Frank, you've got one voice or you can do something. Paul doesn't even sound like himself track to track. He's
Dude,
absolutely out.
When was the last time you listened to Magneto and Titanium, man?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love that.
Who is that guy?
Yeah, no, it's just, My Love, that song.
Oh,
That's on that. It sounds like it's a 16-year-old girl singing. It's unbelievable. And he was probably in his 40s then, probably. It's
oh yeah.
There's a track, it was from the 90s that he did, and it's the B-side, I think, to My Brave Face, called Flying to My Home. It's not a very great song, but he's using the Got to Get You Into My Life fade out voice. The Got to Get You Into My Life fade out voice is one of the most astonishing things ever. And I was alone, I took a ride, I didn't know I'll find that. And it's like really proper stacks or something.
He's like, I was alone, I took a ride. He's like, yeah, he just turns into this, otherworldly human.
For 20 seconds even. And it's like, why didn't you do everything like that? We really
That's the best.
I love that.
No, man. He's diverse is not the right even word.
I saw a quote once where he said the reason the Beatles are so good is we were trying to sound like Little Richard and we messed it up. But I think actually sometimes he actually sounds exactly like Little Richard. He totally nails it.
Totally.
Some of that, one hand clapping, that that live album which came out with the sort of reaction from Wings. I think that's the best his voice is actually. Just after the Beatles, and he's got this kind of really gruff sort of rock voice, but then he can sort of switch to.
Yeah, 69 to 71. It's a miracle, that voice. That's the Let It Be voice, Because he doesn't, so Let It Be is ubiquitous. We all know Let It Be. It's everywhere. When does his voice sound like that again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a one-off voice. It doesn't even sound like on Abbey Road. It's just a one-off voice.
It is so funny, man. He can be that guy. What came to mind just now when you said the Wings era was, my dog, he got 3 legs.
Yeah.
Your dog. When he goes like, your dog. When he goes like, this guy voice. Just, some, I don't know, man. He's amazing.
He's a brave actor, really. If you want your actors to give you something, right? Give me something. He gives you something. So he's actually performing. He's not, he's not a folk singer. He says, I'm just going to, use my natural voice.
I wonder if he likes I actually do want to get off this topic. I don't want to stay here forever. But I wonder his thought on anywhere from vaudeville to contemporary theater. Like, where does I wonder if Paul he's so theatrical.
He absolutely does. So vaudeville in America, but music hall in the UK.
Yeah.
Him and John, you could just look at it. Magical Mystery Tour, right, Mark? Magical Mystery Tour is absolutely the British equivalent of vaudeville.
Sure.
Sensibility, all those songs like When I Was 64, or
but in a very sort of quite a cheesy stuff you'd see on your, maybe on the TV was, in its early stage. Then there's sort of stuff you get sort of tea time on TV, isn't it? It's nothing deep. It's not trying to be clever. It's just like this is the stuff that surrounds us. And I could, our family grew up singing in the pub and stuff like that. I think it's like,
Have you ever been to Abbey Road? Have you managed to squeeze it in?
No, man. So a couple of my musical mentors growing up, they were huge producers in the Latin music scene because I grew up in South Florida. Miami was this hub for the Latin music community globally. And they got to go to Abbey Road a few times to record some of the bigger names in Latin music. But I was invited to go once, couldn't make it over. And it was just, it's on my list. I would love to get in there one day and just soak it up, but haven't been.
There's a guy in the first episode Mark interviewed. We were just down there to go and shoot a link outside a video, and we bumped into this producer from Florida.
Oh, who's that? Do you remember his name or?
Jamie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he recorded with Lemmy, hadn't he?
Yeah, Lemmy and
Jamie.
What's his name?
He does Lemmy.
No doubt. People like that. But he came down and he was doing the, hanging outside Abbey Road, hoping they'd let him in.
Yeah.
But he come all the way just to stand outside and
so cool.
That's a weird thing in itself, isn't it? People do that. in the old days, I'd go, come, we'll go down. I'll take it down there. I
Yeah.
had an American band there once called young American band called the Shazam, named
Cool.
after the Move album.
Yeah.
And we went to Abbey Road and I just took them in there. And they said, do you know what I've always wanted to do? Oh my God. The only thing I really want to do when I go and stand in the echo chamber. So I went, I'm sure they'll let you. So we went and stood in the echo room, and we just stood there. This guy was sobbing his heart out. And I got a credit on their album as a result. Thanks to Des for showing me the echo chamber. Abbey Road. I was like, okay.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. That's the most easily earned credit on an album ever.
Yeah. You
It's
just
it's like the
you
Lenny
threw him in a room.
Plus thing, isn't it? Go on.
Yeah.
Jacob, as we near the end, I've got to ask you this question. We normally start with this, but I haven't actually asked you it. It's the title of the program, the podcast. Can you imagine a world without the Beatles? If not, why not?
Am I allowed to say I can't?
Yes, as long as you explain why.
I say I simply can't imagine a world without the Beatles. Wow, that sentence did make me slightly emotional as I said it. I can only speak from the experiences I've had on this planet, and I think everything Beatles has to do with my mom, who I mentioned has passed away over about a decade ago now, and she taught me appreciation of music, not just the Beatles, but appreciation of music and the fabric. Without her, there's no Beatles to me, and without the Beatles, there's no appreciation for music. So, in short, a world without the Beatles is a world without music, and a world without music is a world without emotion, and a world without emotion is pointless. So, yeah.
For those who go in, for me, it was that, like Steve Jobs took from the story, this is the business model for the Beatles. For me, I grew up on the equivalent of American projects, very poor. And for me, that was my way out. I could see the story. The front of Paul's house that you can go and visit now looks very similar to the one my mum was living in. And so when you go and stand outside that and watch in your mind's eye Paul walking down the street with a guitar case as a teenager, that's me doing the same thing, hoping that someone's going to say, I never really wanted to be a musician, like a famous musician. I just like doing music. I'm not a performer. So, but still, nonetheless, hoping that someone would say, "Oh, I like your music," or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was my route out. And so, a lot of the people in my street would have been, in American terms, MAGA supporters. And I was the one who was listening to Ravi Shankar albums at 10 out of the music library. And they gave me that. They gave me that early. A worldview.
Look, I've heard these songs like you guys. I've heard these songs thousands of times. I was on a run yesterday, and I was listening to the White Album. And While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I covered it with my band in high school dozens of times at shows outside of Starbucks in South Florida. And yeah, man, I'm how many times have you heard the entrance of the guitar solo right towards the end of the tune? And it hit me like it was the first time I've heard it yesterday. I don't know what it is about this band. I don't know what it is about the way it really just carves out your insides and reintroduces you to the world. It's a crazy phenomenon. I don't really know how to describe it. I mean, my mom's with me every day inside, and so when I hear something I've heard a million times over, it's like I get to, be with her again, or I get to see life through this lens of like, I hope I get to meet Paul when I'm older, like a childhood version of myself, just being like, dear Mr. McCartney, can you come visit Indian Trace Elementary School in South Florida? It's like, I don't know. There's it's brand new every single time is all I'm trying to say. It's so cool.
But you've just got your new album out, which comes out in...
Oh, it's coming out. You got the right idea. Will be out September 4th, full release. Yeah.
So this is your first one where you're like, you've done the album with some profile, right? So this means a lot to you, this album and everything.
Yeah.
So at what point were you comparing Dix with the Beatles as you going, this is what I've done. I could have gone further here or less. I mean, how does that influence you? As a producer and performer and writer, when you've got such a prolific and successful artist, fanboy, mentor relationship going on with the Beatles?
Do you mean now? Let me just clarify something. Do you mean like in terms of the recording process, or like?
No, I mean, ultimately with the finished product. So, I mean,
Hmm.
I remember getting my first album copy, and I was looking at Revolver, going, yeah, fuck it. It's like, you have, but you've got a benchmark, you've got a yardstick,
Hmm.
you're measuring yourself.
So what's so funny about Revolver and bringing that up, I will say this might not have everything to do with what you said, but it does have a lot to do with it. Part of the part of the process of making this record, the easy part, the fun part was recording in the woods with my best friends. The hard part was, and then mixing it was challenging but awesome. Then it's like, how do I put this out? Do I go with a major label? Because there's a major label interested, but they can't put it out till 2026, and I don't want to wait that long. And there's all these things. It's like I want to strike now because I want to make another record next year. And the hardest part was artwork, and I was like, what looks cool? I don't know what looks cool. I have no idea. I think I know what sounds cool, but I just kept looking at Revolver, man. I just kept looking at both Revolver and Let It Be because of the simplicity of the album covers. So I was holding the vinyls up and I was like, how do I be the Beatles? Like my whole life, how do I be these heroes of mine? It brings to light this age-old crucible you face as an artist, which is, do I love them so much, enamored or jealous? Am I, it's this constant musicians or artists struggle, or, maybe other walks of life and other occupations kind of pull the same feeling out of people. But I can only speak as an artist and a musician that like, it's a challenge, but it's a beautiful fight, I guess.
It's the exact same fight that John had with Paul and Paul had with John, and presumably George had with both.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, George, we haven't talked enough about him today, but
No, we didn't even mention the Prince guitar solo on that While My Gently Weeps version.
oh my God, at concert for George.
I didn't get invited to that. I was really there's no reason again why I should be. I couldn't get a ticket. But I saw George's last ever gig. And
Where
it
was that?
amazing. It was in '91. I took 3 days to decide to go, and this is pre-internet, obviously, and everything. And when I'd changed my mind, I don't know why I didn't go. And when maybe I couldn't afford it, and then I said to my sister, "Should we see if we can get George tickets?" And we still could get like third row, fourth row at the Albert Hall. It's not a big venue. And we went, and what happened was he looked like Beagle George, Sergeant Pepper George. And we stood up. It's a seated venue where they do the classical concerts and everything. And we walked to the front, and then the security guards, bar the very front line of people, made everyone sit back in their seats, just so there were some people at the front. So we just stood there, and as this twice as long as my arm away from George. And the first thing they did was, "I Want to Tell You," off Revolver.
Oh.
And then he just did everything you would want him to do. He did everything he did with the Beatles, and then all the main solo ones. And then after the show, Ringo joined him for a couple. And then after the show, everyone was standing outside the Albert Hall. I mean, everyone in the theatre was standing outside the stage door.
Yeah.
He was doing photos because he was doing it as a benefit. So he was doing photos with the people he was doing the benefit for. And then my sister said, "It's too cold, we've got to go." So we walked around the corner, and there were a couple of people by another door. We were just about to go, and this car pulls up, and Olivia's in the front seat. And I went, "That's his wife." And some guy gets out of the back, pops the boot, and George comes out of the back carrying 2 guitar cases, and they put them in there. So he signed my ticket. That was the only time I've
Oh
met,
my-
unfortunately, like as a
So
fan.
cool.
And Olivia's shouting out the car, "Get in, you idiot!" There's like 2,000 people around the other side. And
That's so good.
there's a lot of people here. And it's like, "Oh, you man, must be."
Oh, I love him so
Thank you.
much. That's so
Yeah.
cool, man. That's
I
so
think
cool.
your track, you need that track, Dawn. It's got a very
Oh, yeah.
good guitar on it.
I mean, so Harrison Whitford, who played my whole record with me and has collaborated with Jack and I on a few of these tunes, Harrison is my Beatles brother.
Yep.
Maybe nobody in this town that I know can play like George, like Harry. I mean, Harrison is it's probably named after George. His father, actually, not to throw Harry under the bus here, but I know he's not ashamed of this, but and this has nothing to do with why he's so good at guitar. Maybe it does a little bit. His dad is in the band Aerosmith, actually. So he grew up around music like really like nobody else. He grew up on tour with his dad a little bit. Harry is a reincarnate, in my opinion, in terms of feel, touch, and just playability. And also, Harry could do Beatles impressions like perfect. He could do each Beatle perfectly. I think he'd be afraid to do it in front of a couple of real Brits, but I'd make him do it next time we'll all hang at some point.
It's interesting talking, about musical theatre and the Beatles and stuff. And it's really interesting because there's a danger there. It sounds like we're obsessed by the Beatles and nothing else. Actually, the thing that I listen to all day, every day at the moment, have done for last years, is a kind of combo of, Domi and JD Beck, all the Wolf stuff, your stuff, Lewis Cole, who is like, do you work with Lewis much? Have you ever met him?
I've never worked with him. He was my neighbor for years. About 6 years ago, we lived literally next to each other and or across the street. He blows my mind. I mean, he's the best in the game in that world.
He's the last person Dora and I both found. He's doing the orchestral show. He did it in London.
Oh, good.
And they said you can have an upgrade to go to see the sound check, and it was only like 20 quid or something. He needs to charge more for his tickets because the gig was sold out. Anyway, we went to the sound check, and they were rehearsing the song "Let It Happen." And I've been waiting for 2 years to see Lewis. Like I've been waiting 5 years now for Vulfpeck. Guys, finger out. And as soon as the singers and Jen and everyone started doing the hum at the beginning of that track, I literally crumbled, like it was Morricone. I saw Morricone once, where he was doing Deborah's theme from Once Upon a Time in America, literally like shaking in my seat. It was amazing. So the Beatles, but everything else new as well. That's the thing. And but I still feel like, even though I think Mark probably feels the same, that we're really engaged, as you must be yourself, with contemporary and new music, that no one's really bettered it yet. That's the weird thing to finish on, maybe.
Obviously opinions here, but I think I like you. I was in a box for my whole childhood, and in fact, I would collaborate with people. A guitar player I grew up playing with named Jimmy Powers, who was so into the Beatles, but so into Zappa and so into Joe Walsh. And I remember being like, yeah, but while my guitar gently weeps, or this solo. And he's like, dude, you got to get out of your Beatles box, man. He's like, and so the more people I met that were like, you got to check this out. You got to check this out. I'm still catching up. I'm still like, the other day, Jimmy, my buddy, calls me. He's like, have you listened to Neil Young's catalog at all? And I was like, not really.
This happened to me when David Crosby died. I love the Byrds more than anything.
Yeah.
And I never listened to Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Right.
And I've never listened to Deja Vu. And I was listening to them sing Teach Children on TV, and I thought, because of the O bit, and I thought I better listen to the album. I didn't stop playing it for 2 months. So the same thing, the catch up.
Yeah.
I think we're all catching up. I mean, I'm so grateful for knowing the Beatles catalog front to back to front, inside out. But like, yeah, I'm playing catch up. And so when it comes to contemporary music, I think like we're all kind of still playing catch up because like we're making stuff inspired by the Beatles and the versatility that was their catalog. I mean, I keep bringing up the White Album because I feel like it was like a breakout of each voice.
Yeah.
I think like Long being on the same record as Blackbird, being on the same record as Everybody's Got Something to Hide. This is the most colorful tapestry of voices, an amalgamation of all of these characteristics is what we're all kind of feeding off of. We're all kind of like, hummingbirds. That's the sugar water right there, it's the White Album, or just the tapestry, man. And in terms of new music, I'm listening to a lot of the stuff my friends are doing. I love Lewis's music. I have some songwriter friends out here that are my friend Ryan Lerman, who's worked with Wolf before too. He's got a new record coming out. My buddy Ben Jaffe, who did a record with Theo. I think there's so much good music out there, and I kind of love that about Spotify. I don't like so many things about Spotify, but I do like this like algorithmic, hey, check this out. If you like that, you might like this. And it's like, oh, that's AI or algorithms being used the correct way, I think. And I like discovering new people that way. They're just pulling from the Beatles, and I can't, that's the best description I can give you as to why. I don't really know why else.
I've got to show you this because my daughter went off to go and get it for me. Why have Vulfpeck that far in the charts? This is my little Vulfpeck collection.
Is that all the same record right there? What's going on? I can't see. Is that all the same record?
It's all the Vulfpeck albums.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
Cows in there. Got my Clarity Cow.
I love this record. I
work
love
on
what
there.
we did there.
Big Dipper is one of the biggest earworms of all time.
Ah, cool. That one we wrote at my sister's place, where my grand piano has lived at my sister's house for a while now. We wrote that there, and I love working with Jack, man. It's just such a freeing thing. And I did not anticipate Big Dipper. I don't anticipate things being bigger than they are, and I think that's an expectation thing that I learned a long time ago. So when we're fooling around with an idea, I'm like, okay, maybe that lives on my phone forever, or maybe that was just a fun night hanging out. I don't know.
You know what's gorgeous about that? Where the drop down with the chord sequence, when you've you know, and
Yeah.
between the bridge, you know, effectively, you know.
The way we write, here's the boiled down truth. The way that I write with Jack is Jack will have a chord arrangement, and he might be sitting on it for 4 years. One day a melody will just pop into my head, and that's what happened with Big Dipper. He had been playing that descending chord line for so long, for like maybe a year. And we just started fooling around with it one night. So a lot of the music is Jack. A lot of the melodies are mine. And then we'll just kind of go back and forth on lyrics and aim at something, I guess. Yeah.
Beautiful. Let's well, thanks so much, Jacob. I mean, obviously we could get, you know, we're so
I know.
nerdy. We could do another 4 hours, but I'm so looking forward to hearing the rest of the album, because you
Yeah.
know, the whole
It's
team.
quite annoying to talk about Spotify, so they blank out the songs which have been released so far, and then the rest are just like title to come or something. It's like quite frustrating.
Well, there's a couple of crazy. There's a Lennon, a Plastic Ono band sounding tune coming out soon, and then a it's a very Beatles influenced record. Also, obviously, everything is. So.
Yeah.
Jacob, been an absolute pleasure, and we'll look out for the rest of the album.
You guys
Thank
are
you very
amazing.
much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks. Great to meet you.